Arts organizations in the Fenway are joining forces on Monday for an open house. Among the participants is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. To tell us about the museum and programming for the event is our guest, the Gardner's Director of Community Engagement, Rhea Vedro. Thank you much for being with us, Rhea.
Thank you.
First of all, aside from this one day, talk about the museum's vision for engaging the community.
Yes, well, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum has a community engagement department that sits within our larger education work. And community engagement is really specifically about developing mutually beneficial relationships with partners in our community. And we're specifically interested in a bullseye, like a walkable 40-minute radius, 30-minute radius right around the museum. So Roxbury, Mission Hill, Fenway, some of JP, and really thinking about who are the culture makers, who are the artists and luminaries and people doing work right now, good work in the community nearby the museum, and really developing relationships that highlight their work and figuring out fresh lenses on our collection through collaborations and co-curating programming with our neighborhood emerging artists and culture makers.
Well, on Monday, you're also going to be part of a larger series or a chain of events. So talk a little bit and put that in context.
Yes, we are delighted to be part of the Fenway Alliance. And the Fenway Alliance brings together cultural organizations across the Fenway in Boston. Regularly, we meet with the Fenway Alliance, but they are hosting actually the 15th Opening Our Doors Day festival all along the Fenway. So things are happening with the Muddy River, things are happening at the MFA, things are happening in Berkeley School of Music, things are happening Mass Art, things are happening in many places, including certainly the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And so all of these organizations are free and open to the public on this day and celebrating, knocking down doors, not wanting to be places of exclusivity or making people feel like maybe it's not for them. It's really for everybody. So all united in that vision, we are happy to be part of the 15th anniversary of Opening Our Doors Day. And there'll even be trolleys taking people around, there'll be food trucks, there'll be things happening in Evansway Park right near us in front of the museum, as well as throughout the Fenway.
We're talking with Rhea Vedro from the Gardner Museum. What about things going on inside the museum on Monday that will be different from a normal day?
Yes, well, so first of all, we're opening at 10 a.m. Normally the Gardner opens at 11, but we're opening at 10 a.m. to be in alignment with all of the other organizations opening Our Doors Day. And we have the museum packed with programming for kids and families and anybody, tourists, adults, students, from 10 a.m. until the museum's open until 5, but the programming will start to wrap up right around 4:30. And we have in our art studio hands-on making with an amazing woman named Gianna D'Ambrosio. She is a conservator from MIT. And she has studied the ancient art of correspondence and particularly something that she's calling letter locking. So at our museum right now, we have an exhibition called Beyond Words that is about Renaissance manuscripts and has these rare manuscripts, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago on display in our museum. And that's a wonderful opportunity, which would be a whole other show. But in celebration of the Beyond Words exhibition, we have book-based and book making, all kinds of things happening in the museum over the next several months that are related to the written word and this idea of beyond words. So on Monday, Gianna D'Ambrosio is teaching a workshop on letter locking, which is how do you fold paper before the advent of the envelope? Across the world, people would come up with these elaborate security systems for their correspondence where they would fold and slice and seal their correspondence. And then they could know if it had been tampered with as it traveled through donkeys and camels and boats and all of these things in the 1400s, 1300s. And then each family in different places would have their signature way of folding this correspondence. So this conservator from MIT is working with us in the studio on Monday to teach a workshop in some of these folding techniques. And then young people, adults alike, can come and create their own letter-locked correspondence, write with quill pens and use sealing wax to stamp and seal their letter with a signet, and then mail it off that day. We also have lots of performance happening throughout the day. We have in Calderwood Hall, which is this amazing sonic cube within the Gardner, we have performances, and then as well in the courtyard, which is a historic palace with these beautiful gardens inside. So in the morning, we have Castle of Our Skins joining us right at 10:30. They will be there in Calderwood Hall for their first performance, and then there will be another performance at 11:30. And that is an amazing celebration of musicians across the African diaspora, and celebrating culture and creativity for the whole family, orchestral music. And I have actually their lineup with me, so I could talk about that. But
I know they play music by some African American composers, people who are probably unfairly neglected.
They're amazing. They are a collective of musicians, and this creative luminary, Ash Gordon, heads it up. And so for this particular day, they're presenting a program called Umoja. And some of the titles of the pieces: Dances de Panama, 5 folk songs in counterpoint, Voodoo Dolls, String Quartet No. 3, and they, I believe, are all by African American composers. So we're really excited to host them in Calderwood Hall. Additionally, we have the Lance Martin Jazz Trio. They'll be performing in the morning in our historic palace in the courtyard, and that's at 12, and then they'll be back in Calderwood Hall later on in the afternoon at 3. Throughout the day, there's also intro talks for the public to learn all about the museum. We have activities for children. We have gallery games. If there's a line outside, it does get very busy. We'll have fun things to do while you're waiting in line. And as I mentioned, in Evansway Park, there will be lots of things going on. There'll be tables, hosting activities for kids. There'll be a Zumba class. There'll be a Brazilian, I believe a samba group or a percussion group. There'll be food trucks nearby. So it's that whole corridor along the Fenway will really be activated, and we welcome everybody.
Talk about what this is like for somebody who has not been to the museum before, because when you look at this from the outside, it's not very interesting.
Yeah, it
and,
is
and
a surprise.
You're usually very surprised.
Yes, it is absolutely very. It's not clear what's happening on the inside from the outside. So recently, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum has a new wing that was built by the architect Renzo Piano just a couple years ago. So one half of the building is this brand new, very modern glass architecture, and the other half is a historic palace. So when you enter, you have the historic palace. Isabella Stewart Gardner collected art at the turn of the century, last century, so the early 1900s, and opened this museum that she lived on the top floor of, and it's Renaissance art, it's amazing antiquities, and she curated and created this space, this experience. The whole museum is really a piece of art where there are gardens, and there's inner courtyard that's much like being in Venice, and there's all of this art on the wall, Vermeer and all of these classic Renaissance painters and sculptors, but there's no labels anywhere. It's how she wanted to create this experience. So you come through and you form your own interpretation of the galleries, and it's very surprising and delightful, and can be visually, it's so rich. And then the other side is this very airy, light, glass, open space where we have greenhouses, and we have our education studio where you can do this hands-on making. We have a living room where you can relax. We have our greenhouses that you can actually walk through, and that's considered a whole part of our art, as well as these amazing horticulture displays. So when you come in, you can expect there might be a little wait outside, as there will probably be with many of these museums on these free days. But once you are in, you will be having so much fun, and there's many, many friendly people to answer any questions you may have. It's definitely good for families, good for students, good for scholars, and there's the Beyond Words exhibition upstairs in the new building as well. I
know even beyond Monday, you have a lot of other things planned for the Calderwood Hall, and I guess if people would like some information about that, you've got the website.
Yes, just gardnermuseum.org has, on our events calendar, you can find all kinds of things. One of the things that I have the pleasure of being involved with is our Rise Music series, and that's a contemporary music series. It's co-curated by Shay Rose and Simone Scazzarocchio. And it's indie, it's pop, it's hip hop, it's all kinds of fresh music coming to the Gardner, along with our many amazing classical concerts. And so this Rise Music series, we have a concert that's sold out this Thursday, the 13th. Amel Leroux, who's a songstress, a very soulful. She played with Sade. She's fabulous. And then there's another concert in December, Betty Who, and I encourage everybody to go online and get tickets for that show. When we do those concerts, we partner with a youth community spotlight. We bring in a young singer from the community to open up the show. We always have a Boston act that opens a show, and a headliner that's nationally known or internationally known. And it's just a really exciting series. The series also asks the headliner to pick a theme that's close to their heart. So for this one, it's mindfulness. In the past, it's been women's empowerment. And then we, as community engagement, look at who are the community organizations in the neighborhood who are working around that same social issue. And we offer them tickets to come to the show, and we partner with them on multiple touches. So it's a really beautiful community engagement tool, as well as being a fabulous concert and world-class music venue.
Well, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Rhea Vedro from the Gardner Museum. Up ahead, an agricultural exposition in Roxbury.